Hi Sam, so if we look at the first swing here on the left hand side, this was the first swing that you did coming through the lesson, or coming through the door. And if we just sort of immediately go to the swing on the right hand side, straight out the middle of the club. So we'll go through it and we'll break it down to what you sort of changed and what you're thinking of. So the initial sort of first part in your swing is if you keep an eye on what the wrists do here. So the initial movement is nice away from the ball. You know, the club, you call that closed, or the wrist sort of looking at the ground, which is nice. But then this is now where it starts to go wrong. Okay, so I'm just going to stop it there when the club head reaches the netting at the top there. So because of what you've done with the wrists, you could call it extension in the wrist, or just I should call it overhinging, whatever you want to call it, overloading the wrists. It puts the club face into a very open position. So as you swing back now here, that face will be classed as quite open. So what you then have to do is you facilitate that open face by swinging to the left. Okay, so as you can see here, you swing a long way leftward through impact, but if you keep the face open as it is, as you can see, you're coming into the ball here, even at such a late stage, the face is literally pointed at the wall. You can hit a reasonable shot, which you did. The problem is with doing it this way is the consistency levels are going to be very, very low. So the first thing that we did is just change the wrist condition. So on the one on the right hand side now, towards the end of the lesson, if I put you in the same position when the head reaches the netting at the top here, you can see the difference in the face angle, and you can see that we've kind of quietened down the wrist set. We've put a little bit more flexion or bowing, whatever you want to call it, or we just said the Mizuno logo on your wall, on your glove, effectively just trying to point at me, who I'm standing directly behind you. Whatever you want to do, the grip's pretty good, we don't really want to change that. So you can see now that puts you in a much stronger position with the club face. So on the way down now again, and again there's little things that are wrong, the sort of movement of the right shoulder's a little bit funky, but the reality is, as you work down now and you get into a position of, if we go lead arm parallel to the ground versus lead arm parallel to the ground on the old one, you can see how much more depth you've got there. The arms sort of bang in line with the middle of the chest. Here the arm's starting to move out, and then the sort of real killer move now is as you go into sort of shaft parallel to the ground, you can see it's not clear, but the head is obviously a long way outside the hands, whereas now you can see it sits just nicely on the inside here, and then from there right the way out the middle of the club. But you can kind of get the idea of the club through impacts, even just looking on a 2D camera. We changed the path to in to out versus the one on the left hand side. You can see how that club effectively just cuts across the ball, so you lose a lot of power doing it this way as well. So the key is to remember that you trying to sort of desperately swing it to the right hand side is not necessarily the way to go to start off with. The way for you to get the club moving to the from the inside to the outside, creating that sort of draw style path, is really changing the conditions of the wrist, or the club face, if you want to call it that. This was one which was a sort of over exaggerated wrist, so you can really see here the difference in the wrists. So again, it's the sort of same frame, and if you look at the two angles of the club face, just totally different. So if you start doing this again, you're going to struggle. We need to keep it the more like the one on the right hand side, but you can see the differences. You saw the difference with the TrackMan numbers. It's just obviously being conscious and doing enough at the range, so when you go on the course it feels unconscious. But obviously you've already had some really good scores so far this year, so